The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi there, it's Thursday afternoon and it's a Joanna Hart show. It's Joanna Hart with you and I'm broadcasting live from London. Today we've got a really interesting guest that a few of you know about. I'm quite excited to get on. And he's been someone I've been following on YouTube. He's got a massive amount of followers. He's got a website called Becoming a Living God. He's also an author and I've read some of his books now, which are really, really interesting. And he knows so much about the unseen realm. And as you know, it's something that we, as a movement, are getting very, very curious about. You know, for a long time, we didn't bother about looking into the unseen realm. Now, with the ascension going on and everybody becoming interested with ET, demons, what are they? Are they ET? Are they demons? So I'm going to follow up with a theme of mine by bringing on E A Koetting. I hope I've said that right. Eric, welcome to the show. Hi, how are you?
Doing great. No, and you did pronounce that perfectly, so thank you.
Oh, excellent. It's only because so many people I've been calling you Keating and talking about you, and they're like, no, it's Koetting. But it's quite an original name. We've got something in common. We both got you're not sure about your birth date, so I was, and I'm not sure about my birth date, and I was grew up in foster care as well. So I was like, oh wow, someone else who's got an unsure birth date, which is it's quite difficult, isn't it, to not be sure.
Well, it's funny. I thought that was a pretty isolated situation, so that's interesting to hear that you had the same thing happen, because I don't think that's common. But
No.
But maybe it is. I mean, when we get governments involved, it's only sure that we're going to have some kind of confusion. But yeah, that's. I only found out a few years ago in speaking with my birth mother after finally making that connection with her again, that she's got her the pictures that she's taken, because she had me for a few months before giving me up for adoption, and the pictures that she took were dated, and I'm clearly almost a full year older than what I had grown up thinking, and so that was interesting to kind of deal with. And when the birthdays come around, I'll just celebrate it for a full week and call it good.
That's what I do. I know it's good, isn't it? You don't really have to. I'm pretty sure of the month, but just not the day. So, it's interesting. It's interesting growing up in care as well, that when I saw you lecturing about you've got a brilliant lecture, the demonic hierarchies, and then I listened to, you were speaking to your friend. I don't know what his name is, the guy who's got the skinhead kind of haircut.
Skin haircut, yeah, it's Nate Bales. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, you guys, when you talk, it's just like mesmeric. I mean, you've got a few of your chats with him. It's just brilliant because you're both really, really relaxed, and it's just fascinating. I really enjoyed those chats, and you were talking about you journeyed and you'd come in contact with a discarnate, and you said it was Azazel. Now I don't know where you found out it was Azazel, but you described him, and you said he had eyes of liquid fire and he was on a throne, and the throne was made up of slithering worms and actually serpents. And as you were describing, I actually could see him in my mind's eye really, really strongly. And I just found that really interesting. And then you seemed to go on and have a relationship with him, which I want to talk about. And I found that quite interesting because your childhood was similar to mine, and I had abusive foster parents, and the same thing with that sort of dark, activity. And I had that urge when I was younger to encounter a fallen angel. It was just literally my passion. And I went about it by visiting like serial killers, infamous serial killers, even one over in America, Hillside Strangler Bianchi, just to try and find the fallen angel that I felt had come through them. And when I heard you, I was almost jealous and kind of like, oh, that guy's just gone straight to the source. It did make me really massively envious. So what I still am. I can feel it. Just a envy that you didn't waste your time. You just completely went into studying the dark side. What made you? Was it just like a thirst?
Yeah. Okay, so this is where things get interesting, because I did start just gravitating towards it. I mean, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was adopted into the family that then raised me for the rest of my life, and they caught me one time meditating with my hand stretched out towards my Lego blocks, and I was trying to make them levitate. And now this was a good Mormon family, and so they were sure that the devil was involved in my soul somewhere, and so they kind of took the religious approach, and I just knew from an early age that this world is intersected by another world, and that there had to be some way to contact it. And growing up religious really did help, because there's enough fantasy there in religion that you can lock onto and start to really take apart the mythology and see that the prophets, the most important people throughout all of the scriptures, are those who have direct contact with the spirit world, and any other power, any other ability that any great spiritual messiah or prophet has ever had comes from their direct contact with the spiritual. And so that became my absolute focus and goal. And along the way, I was able to learn magical and religious systems, occult systems of thought, different ways that I could make that contact with the spirit realm. And eventually, I found myself basically with an entire library of knowledge on how to do this, because I was completely obsessed. I mean, rather than going out and partying with friends, I would, I'd spend my time in front of a scrying mirror trying to see into the other worlds and speaking with spirits. So, I mean, I'm definitely a geek with this, but that's kind of what's given me that amount of knowledge.
Yeah, I hear you. I had that same thing. My parents were Catholic, and they pronounced that I was evil. And then, of course, when you are looking into the spirit world, you think, oh, well, I'm looking at something bad. And it almost, I suppose with Catholics, it's like forbidden. I was told it was forbidden. And I was caught reading books on astral projection, and they were taken off me, and I was slapped around the head with it. And it does make you, if you're not surrounded by people who have that interest, it does, I think it does make it worse. Or maybe there's just certain people that are meant to have one foot in one world, and like yourself, and one foot in another, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, and one of the really interesting things was when I was, I think I was 25, my birth mother contacted me, because I started writing under my name, E A Koetting, which is the name that she gave me. And so as that name became more and more just out there, she came across me and contacted me, and as we start talking, she tells me, I mentioned that I'm an author, and she was so just not really all that impressed by it. She goes, "Oh, that's nice. That's nice." I'm going, "Well, usually when you tell people that you've published books, they're pretty impressed by that." And she goes, "Oh, it's nothing. Everybody in our bloodline's been authors. I mean, we have published authors for generations." And I go, "Oh, that's interesting that traveled through the blood." And then she started asking about the subject of my books, and so I told her, and she checked it out and came back and said, it's not surprising either, because your grandmother was a witch." And I went, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, we've got witchcraft that runs also for generations in my blood." And so despite how I was raised, there was something traveling actually through my DNA, pushing me towards this other world.
Yeah, it does seem to to run in bloodlines. Someone was talking to me about the SS, because I have memories of being in certainly with the Nazis in a previous life. I've seen back to it. And she said that the most of the Nazis were witches reincarnated, and that's why the Nazis had the Thor Society, and they were, really strongly into the occult. I don't know if you know much about what they were up to.
Oh yeah. No, that's looking into what the Nazis were up to is a very interesting thing. It gets touchy to be able to start to talk about that publicly, because then there are all sorts of associations that went on, and that's one unfortunate thing I'll say is that that there has been some I guess infiltration of the occult symbols and the occult world by some white supremacy ideologies, and unfortunately that creates this kind of tie where people almost automatically would link somebody like a Satanist as also being a part of that white supremacy movement. But once again, even getting into Hitler and what he was up to and his influences is really interesting from an occult view, for sure. That he spent fortunes and a massive amount of time and energy trying to collect religious and occult relics in order to help him have power in the war that he was fighting, and you can actually track down some of those relics and the dates of who possessed those to some really interesting turns of events in World War II, for sure.
Oh, what, like the Spear of Destiny and the what was the other one? The gosh, wasn't it? Yeah, the Spear of Destiny, and then there was the Chalice. And did they actually get hold of them?
I don't know that they got the Chalice, but they got what supposedly was the Spear of Destiny, and there was some really interesting coincidences that then occurred as soon as Hitler had taken possession of the spear. But that was only one relic. There were also teams that were in Haiti at the time learning voodoo, and in order to take that back as a power. They were in all over Africa. The amount of high-ranking African Nazi soldiers was interesting to see. When you see an African soldier in an SS uniform saluting Hitler, is a really interesting sight, and there are several photos of that. But he was down in Africa looking for different relics. He had teams in Tibet looking for different things that they could use, and he understood that the war that he was fighting was not merely a physical battle, but that it had to take place on an energetic level as well.
Oh, did he? What happened with the Nazis? Because some people think that they're still here and there's the Fourth Reich and that kind of thing. Is that happening?
Well, I mean, when you ask what happened to the Nazis, I mean, a good deal of them were brought over to the U.S. on Operation Paperclip and given high positions in NASA and our Defense Department. So, the Nazis have just been integrated into our common society. If you actually read Mein Kampf and look at what history has become, I mean, it's hard to say that Hitler didn't win in his ideology, because we have become the society that he wanted to create, for sure.
Do you think so?
In a lot of ways. I mean, not in the racist way, but in the passive and active eugenics, the work that's gone forward with that, because of some of the experiments that were started under Hitler's watch. I mean, even once again, the NASA was basically formed and given wings by von Braun, who was brought over on Operation Paperclip as a Nazi. So yeah, it's hard to deny the link there that what was started by Hitler didn't actually die out. That Hitler, I mean, hopefully died. There's all kinds of theories that he's hanging out with Elvis and Kurt Cobain in Antarctica, but who knows what's what with that. But we can see that Hitler died, the Nazi Party itself died, but the ideology that was created actually had some momentum that went forward and really made impressions upon our society.
What about the Jews? Are they sort of trying to build the Tower of Babel, like everyone's saying, the Illuminati, etc., etc.?
Oh, I don't have any idea about that. Uh, well, I had heard before that Saddam Hussein was trying to rebuild basically restore the Hanging Gardens, and that would have been an interesting thing, symbolically as well as just the physical feat of that. But there have been all sorts of predictions about that. I honestly don't keep up too much as what's going on with Israel, because it's hard to get information without it being filtered through different medias. I mean, even Facebook posts or news that comes out in social media is so highly filtered by the time it reaches you that it's hard to consider it factual at all. So I've I've really found, and maybe this is Pollyannish of me, but I've found that the less I know about what's going on in the world, the better off my personal life is, because the disasters, and maybe I can put my hand in and help out where I can see the help is needed, but the kind of global consciousness that I think we have right now I think it's harming the local consciousness. That I do try to be more present in my own personal life, the people that surround me, and I'm going to care a lot more about what's going on with them than what I see on a news report. It's like I would not have been disturbed had I not even known that this thing had happened, and I wouldn't have known about it had not somebody told me. And so I kind of do bury my head in the sand with news a lot, because it is so. And especially, I do think, especially in America, but that's because I live in America. Maybe it's the same in the UK. I don't know, but they feed you fear through the media constantly.
They do, yeah.
Oh, and so yeah, it's hard to come in contact with any of that to try to filter through it. And I know you do for your. I mean, this is your career, is to really see what is going on in the world and what's underneath it. But that would drive me absolutely bonkers to try to do that with my life, because I definitely have I have an issue in that I've learned how to manifest anything that I want in my life, and so I've got to be very careful about what I focus on, because I find that it comes about that if I focus on the ills that are going on around me, I happen to see them more. When I'm worried about the police, I happen to see them behind me and pull me over and harass me a lot more. If I ignore them like they don't even exist, I find that I see a lot less of them. And it's kind of like that with a lot of aspects of my life, at least, is my attention has to be firmly placed on where I want my life to go, and it moves in that direction. As soon as I start taking it off to kind of ask myself the what if questions, that's when it all falls apart.
No, I personally, I don't follow what's going on in the world. I got trolled about that, actually, about the Hampstead thing. Somebody said, "Oh, if you just crawled out of a stone, how do you not know about what's going on in Hampstead?" But I too, it's just, you don't hear the truth from mainstream media. I used to be in a mainstream media, and it's the editors that control, not the journalists. They're just minions. It's the editors, and they get told by who's above them. So really, it's just a few people are in control of what we see and hear. So it's ridiculous, and it is to keep us in a state of feeling bad. Firstly it was swine flu, and we're all going to die, and then this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and God, it's awful.
Right. Well, and the fact is that if you're not watching, if you're not looking for that kind of news, your life is pretty good. Like as you look around, you're like, I don't have swine flu. The people that are sitting right next to me at this table right here we're all healthy and fine and having a good time. And you can kind of focus on, what you focus on is definitely what you manifest. And so I think as we all brought our focus back to our own individual lives and the people that are immediately around us, and try to make that a paradise, I think we'll be able to change the world by doing that. But by looking at all the problems and feeding into the fear and feeling that fear yourself, that's not going to be helpful for anything.
I know, and so some people that I know, they talk about politics the whole time, and God, it's so boring. It's nice just to walk amongst the trees and walk barefoot and just make your life really, really simple, and then a better consciousness comes through. I mean, I felt so dirty that I'd been logging onto that Hampstead site, and the people that run it, Hampstead Hosted, are kind of decent people, but all the people that had gone to join them, they were like real bad energy, and I felt so dirty. I've been, God, just dousing myself with salt water. It's yeah, you've got to keep yourself clean and straight. I wanted to talk about curses, and you did a lecture on curses, which I've always thought that it was only curses were only for people that mixed with black magicians or witches, and you couldn't be cursed unless you went to dark places. And then I journeyed one night, and I was actually informed by a discarnate entity that somebody had put me under a curse. And coincidentally, it was when I met somebody else, and I assumed it was from quite a dark person that I knew, but it was actually from somebody who doesn't seem very dark, but they had put a curse on me. So is this going on? People are having bad luck, and they're thinking, oh, it's a run of bad luck, and this is happening, and this isn't the kind of person I am. I'm just losing. And how many times is that a result of a curse from somebody they don't even really familiar with?
Oh wow! Well, this is a really interesting subject because it's one that I think my view on has to evolve as things evolve. Because, all right, so let's look take a step back and look at the last maybe 20 years of history and how much social evolution has taken place. The fact that I can run my business, become a living god, and do it very successfully, and have the kind of get the kind of attention that I'm trying to get on the subject of the occult and these ancient forms of sorcery, that would be impossible 20 years ago. It would be very difficult 10 years ago. But today, it's really a mainstay that you can't turn on the television or see any form of entertainment that doesn't somehow involve something that is very occult related. This is there has been an upsurge for sure in the people that are interested in this, and this is what this is my whole job, is to get people interested in this, to get people looking into this, because this isn't just it's not just ways that you can use spell casting to get a few things that you want. This is the evolution of the human being towards the full ascendancy of becoming a living god, that having the power to manifest anything that you desire in your life and really determine your own destiny through the physical and non-physical things that you're doing. And so in awakening people to this, tools like curses are much more available to get hold of. When I was trying to figure all this out, I'll tell you what, I had a almost impossible time in trying to really learn how these arts are performed. And so I did a lot of work and put a lot of time into really dissecting it, finding the kind of hidden information, and then putting it all together in a usable way. And so now that that's available to more people, and they don't have to do that work because I'm providing it out there, and other authors and artists are putting this information out there as an assault, really, that people are probably using baneful magic and using curses a lot more than they probably ever have in the history of the world. We've got this. The occult, you used to have to go, seek out the witch or the sorcerer that lives off in a cave somewhere in order to get anything done. The days are that you can, open up a spell book in your dorm room in order to help you with your test tomorrow, or fire up a sigil in your car in the parking lot in order to get the raise. And this is something that's becomes so accessible for everybody that, if you bump into somebody, they may just try to use some magic on you, and then a magical battle of sorts ensues. The first step to battling a curse that's been placed on you is becoming aware of it, and this can be through a spiritual awareness or through somebody saying, "Hey, so and so put a curse on you." It used to be thought that, and this is something that even Anton LaVey kind of promoted, is that the power of the curse is in the psychological impact it has on the person that you cursed. And so with that logic, if I were to go to walk up to a stranger on the street and say, "Hey, I put a curse on you," then their fear would start to spin themselves out of control, and they would start to be driven towards self-destructive actions in order to fulfill the curse. That it's all a psychological play. But in the real form of magic, any true black magician knows that that your curse is going to be most effective if the person has no idea that you placed it on them, because then they can't battle it at all.
Yeah. Well, with mine, I had interviewed the serial killer Kenneth Bianchi, who he murdered 13 girls, and he was involved with Satanism, and he did have some kind of entity, and he did have sigils on the wall of his cell. He did have an altar that spoke to them. So when I'd finished writing a book about him, In for the Kill, everything started to go wrong. And I was one of those people, like, you know, if I want money, it comes to me. If I want to do this, I want to move house, the new house will be there. And I just, everything I touch, mostly in my life, turns to gold. And all of a sudden, everything bad was happening. Bad, really bad things. I moved into somewhere that it didn't suit me. And I didn't understand that, because I walked around the house, and, you know, as someone who's clued into that kind of thing, I normally make the right decision. I was making wrong decisions. I sort of slipped into poverty, and I assumed that Bianchi, being probably an adept, had done something to me, and I didn't know what it might be. And then I was listening, I think it was one of your talks on curses, and I was watching, and I thought, wow, couldn't Bianchi have cursed me? And the more I kind of gave it headspace, the more I thought, yeah, it's true. And then when I hung In for the Kill on Amazon, I attracted a troll, and this troll has stalked me for 3 years. And recently, when I did a show about the Hampstead satanic child abuse case, this troll came more out in the open, and he posted long stuff about me, and it was all like inversion, like, you know, she's this, pulling out bits of my life, like, oh, she wasn't abused as a child, her books are all lies, and all this kind of really calling me out. And it really had a really bad effect on me. It just almost made me ill. It was like his energy had kind of raped every cell in my body, and nobody around me was understanding, but it was just horrific. And then when I was journeying, it was about a week ago, this entity came to me. It was a really senior entity, and I knew just to respect it. And it said, back off the Hampstead case, and I communicated that I would. And I asked for a favor, and I said, I need to know about that troll, and I was pretty sure I know who it is, a chap called Simon. I need to know firstly their identity for real. And they said straight away, he's cursed you back a few years ago. And I just thought, that's it, I've been living under his curse. And then unbelievably, I remembered that there was a friend of his that I made friends with, and he told me that this guy did rituals. So he was involved in a cult, and I didn't really take that on board, but the guy does do rituals, and he'd cursed me, and literally it had this effect on me that it affected my life so badly that I slipped into poverty and had a run of horrific luck for 3 years. That's how powerful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and the thing is once again, as soon as you become aware of it, and you have that aha moment, then you can start breaking it. It's really hard to have an effective to use an effective spell against somebody, or any kind of ritual that you're trying to use to control them, if they know that you're doing it. It's just like it's just like a covert hypnosis. You can hypnotize somebody on the spot through your words and your demeanor, and completely have them in a hypnotic state. But as soon as they know, if you go into it and you say, hey, by the way, I'm about to hypnotize you, then your work becomes a lot more difficult. And so it's it's a similar thing where, you can drive somebody to the point of literal death through these ancient forms of sorcery, and through the application of your focus on making that occur through non-physical means, and it can go pretty far. You can use the same, and this is the issue that I personally have with that kind of black magic using curses. Is I don't necessarily have an ethical issue with it. but I do have a kind of a personal, I guess, personal standards issue with it, that you are resorting to putting yourself in contact with destructive energies and forces, and that's just not what I want to have in my life. So I don't want my focus to be towards destroying others, and I do think that that really the company you keep, spiritually as well as any other, is going to affect
Yes.
massively
Yes.
who you are.
It does, because people say stay away from serial killers, which because they've got alters, in some ways, when you sort of what you're dealing with. But it's like when you like writing books about dark subjects and going to websites that are dark, you attract the attention of maybe someone that's really connected up with all that. And I mean, I met the person who started trolling me based on the book that I'd written, and he hasn't gone away. So how would I go about breaking that? And actually, I didn't feel that, there's some people that say just dissipate the energy into the air, or you can send it back to them. I have to say, I feel like sending it back quite strongly. Is that bad, or?
I mean, good and bad is up for our own interpretations. I, I don't think that's bad. Here's what can happen with that is that if you're able to get back on with your normal life after sending it back to that person, then that's fine. If you're kind of on edge waiting to see if this person is going to suffer, then you're kind of falling into the grips of the destruction that you've called. And so if performing whatever ritual needs to be performed is going to allow you to get back into a life of peace, then great, do it. And really, and that's that is my thought with a lot of this is I mean, if and when I have had people dangerously interfering with my private life through their malevolent plans, then those are people that I will put a stop to and have through the blackest magic, and they stop. And then I'm able to get back on with my life.
What's the blackest magic?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about calling forth entities to just take this person off of this earth, and that's kind of part of it is a lot of people, when they think about curses, they when they investigate performing curses on somebody else, the most of the time they say, I don't want them to die. I just want them to get hurt. I want them to learn their lesson. Well, I mean, this is an atom bomb. It is not something that it can be so easily negotiated and put restrictions on. You're unleashing the force of death towards another individual, and sometimes they do die. And so if you go into it, and if you go into a curse, you've got to go into it fully expecting that you're about to take another human being's life. And with that expectation, a good deal of time that can occur. Otherwise, that person just disappears. Their motivation to continue to work against you just dissipates for some reason. Maybe they get a job and move out of their mom's house, and now they have other things to do with their time rather than stalk and harass people. I don't know. And that's whatever it is fine, because in the end, the magic got that person out of my life.
Yeah, I'm easy. I can go to sleep and rest at night knowing that he's slipped off the edge of the earth. I really can. I know he's supposed to feel guilty about that kind of thing, but I really think I could sleep a peaceful sleep.
Yeah. And so, with that, okay. So people have given you the correct advice. So they say, just dissipate his energy and so, or just reverse that against him. Well, I think if somebody is intuitive and in good contact with their energetic being and the energetic world around them, that'll be an easy thing to do. But for most people who've never really gotten into this, that a lot of kind of physical symbolism is necessary, and this is where ritual comes into play. One easy way that you could do this is to, if you know the person that has attacked you, if you can get their photograph, then great, get their photograph. If not,
I can get his photograph. Sorry, carry on. I'm writing this down.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you can get their photograph and then cut out the background, so it's just that person isolated, If you can't get the photograph, then just cut out a little a poppet, and this is easy poppet magic. This is old, this is kind of old folklore type magic that works really really well.
Right.
But you'll write the name of write his name on the cutout, whether it's just a piece of paper or a photograph. Write his full name and birthday if you have that information. That we want to make sure we're targeting a specific John Doe, rather than just casting a spell out on everybody out there with that name. So we want to try to make it as specific as we can to that individual.
So you put that on the photograph that you've cut out.
Yeah. I'll just take a permanent black marker and write their name and birthday, and then once you have that, you're going to hold that in your hand and try to visualize and feel as much as you can a connection, a link being established between the figure that's in your hand and the person that you're trying to affect. And so you're going to imagine them, try to see them in their daily life, try to get a feel for what they might be doing in the moment that you're looking at them. The best time to do this kind of spell, or any kind of spell where you're affecting a person, is at 3 a.m. That's the witching hour for sure. The veil between the worlds is very, very thin at 3 a.m., whatever your local time is. That hour of darkness is perfect. And also at that time, usually your target will be sleeping, and that puts them in a very receptive state for whatever you have to push upon them, and so holding this figure that has their name and that's hopefully a photograph of them, you'll wrap that with red ribbon or thread. You want it to be a thick, not like a sewing thread, but more of like a yarn. So either ribbon or yarn that you're going to wrap this up with. And as you wrap it, you just say the words over and over, I bind you, I bind you. And you can make these.
Sorry, this is great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Do carry on.
The spoken word, the spoken incantation, or whatever it is that you're going to be saying, it should be something that you kind of create yourself, that creates in you the knowledge that what you want to have done is done. And so you can make it simple. I bind you, your power against me is bound, or something like that, and say it repeatedly over and over as you're wrapping the ribbon around this figure. And then once you have it all wrapped up, you can consider from that moment forward that their power is going to be ineffective against you. That their power will be completely nullified. It will not work against you. Now, when I've done this ritual, and this is simple. Yeah, this is not something you need an advanced degree in ancient sorcery to be able to do. This is something anybody who feels like they're under attack can use this, as long as they have at least the name of the person and the name of them. A photograph is best. But then you can bind that person from using anything. I've had seasoned witches that I've helped clients with that will call the client freaking out because they know that they're bound. They can feel it. Their power just is not there in order to work against my clients. And so this is all a testament to the fact that this does actually stop that person from working towards you. Now, what you can do then is you take that bundled up paper and ribbon package there, and you'll tie off the ribbon when you get to the end of it. But you'll take that and you can put it in a freezer. You can put it. You can bury it underground. If you want to bury it underground, there are a couple old witchcraft type of thoughts about this, that if you bury something in your backyard, those are the things that you want to bring into your life. So it's like burying and planting a plant in your backyard. Those are the things you want to keep. If you want something out of your life, then you have to bury it far away from your home, or go ahead and bury it underneath a running river. And so you'll basically just reach into the river with your hands, dig a little hole out, put the paper and ribbon combination there in the ground, cover it back up, and then as the river runs, it's going to wash that person or that situation out of your life. And so you can use these couple simple things to get rid of it. Now, if you want to send it back to the person, one way you can do that symbolically is create a little box. You can get a shoe box and line it with mirrors. Throw this packet, the ribbon and the photograph in this box of mirrors and shut the box. And these are all symbols that you're using to tell your omniscient mind how to target reality around you. And so you're speaking to yourself through symbols. The mirrors will then reflect that energy, the negative energy that was put towards you, back at the person who sent it. And then, as some people have karmic worries about that, well, am I going to have bad things happen to me, or does that make me...
I don't give a damn. I think it's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorted.
Well, and the thing is like, I just went through a description of a full ritual, that this stuff used to be incredibly secret, and now I'm putting it out there, and a lot of other artists are stepping forward and putting this information out there. But this used to be something that you would have no recourse if somebody was putting a spell on you, if you didn't allow yourself to accept that there is a shall we say, a magical solution, an occult solution, something that's hidden that most people have been afraid to do, that you now can use as a tool. And that's something that is really cool that I'm seeing with the people that I'm working with. Is I have teams of physicians who will do consultations with me, and I'll help them call on different spirits that are pushing them in the direction of curing several serious ailments in humans today, and they're using these very occult sciences to push them towards their cures. And scientists are that I'm working with are using this to develop future technology. I mean, this is unlocking the capability of the human being to really become whatever we want to.
Yeah, I noticed you're all about that. I thought you should be more famous than you are, actually. You should be out there, mainstream, but I suppose they want to keep you down.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I've only recently started really pushing myself out into the world through Become a Living God. I mean, we're only a few years into this, and so far we've laid the framework. We've got a really good foundation. But at this point, we're just starting. This is, Become a Living God was started by my partner Timothy and I, and we want to completely change the world, and we're doing it, and we're doing it in massive numbers. So the fact that the numbers that I have of subscribers, of followers on various social media platforms, as well as YouTube, I'm seeing that what I'm doing is having the reach that I want it to have. But this is just the beginning. Like the things that we have coming up, and the different alliances that we're making are going to push our entire agenda forward, and it is currently. So this past 3 years has been incredible growth. The next 3 years is going to completely dwarf it.
You're a very good lecturer. I mean, you're a really good teacher.
Thank you.
Actually, you're a good writer as well. You're supposed to be good at one or the other. Not. I thought, oh, he's a really good lecturer. His books aren't going to be that good. And I've only read one, but it was bloody good, because you've got that. You just open up, don't you, and just do it. And so it's like talking to you, isn't it? So
yeah, that's that.
Stream of consciousness, I think it's called, free stream of consciousness, where you just let go. You don't bother being fancy. You just like so it's like talking to someone, or it's like you've come across their diary and you're reading it. It's like, oh, this is good, and you sort of carry on eating it up, kind of thing.
I think I kind of just learned that. Maybe I've just always been that kind of person that, when I learn something new, I've got to go run and just blab my mouth to everybody that I know about it, and they're going to think it's so cool, and so I've got to tell everybody. And so I've always been, people through my life will tell me that I've never been at a loss for words, and that's for sure. But I also always, I think, even struggle sometimes to remain as authentic as possible. And so, where a lot of people are very concerned about appearing knowledgeable or making sure that they look professional, and I'm not interested in any of that. I'm making sure that I present the real me and my real experiences. because that's really that's what's making the difference, and I think that's a big part of what's pushed my work forward is I'm not setting myself up as an infallible guru, that I'm putting clearly out there, hey, I'm just a normal dude, but look at what I've been able to find and get my hands on. I'll tell you, I appreciate the compliment about being a good lecturer, because I feel when I'm even when I'm filming a video and it's just me in my studio filming, there is always that concern, for me at least, of maybe a confidence thing of going, well, I'm saying the wrong things, or I just slipped up here or there. But then I watch back through it, and it turns out that that the words that are able to flow out of me are exactly what are needed a lot of times. And I don't think that I can personally take credit for that, because before I go in up and do a lecture in front of a classroom, or before I start my video equipment up, I sit and meditate and open myself up as a channel to what needs to be spoken, and I just let that come through me. And it does tend to be a lot of times a genius beyond what I think my conscious mind is capable of.
Oh yes, I felt that actually, because I went looking for something on. I had an encounter with what I thought to be Odin, or it communicated with me. It was Odin, and I felt that father kind of calling me. And I was looking for something spiritual on Odin, and I searched and searched for weeks, and I couldn't find anything passionate about Odin. And then I came across your you were speaking, I think it was about the runes or about Odin, and I thought, oh, thank God there's someone out there who is like passionate about that kind of thing. Is Odin, just pick your brains on that, is Odin one of the lesser gods? Because I didn't even know we had lesser gods.
Oh no, I would Odin. Okay, so one of the interesting things that happens when you start looking into ancient Scandinavian, not only mythologies but their entire spiritual system, is that they were very tribal. I mean that each village would have their own kind of interpretations of the mythologies, that these were never written down as scriptures, but they were told to parents, to children by parents around a campfire or as bedtime stories, and so everybody had their own interpretation of it. But in all of the interpretations, one of the greatest gods of the Scandinavians was indeed Odin. That he's not a lesser god, but he's also he's very human. The mythologies about Odin describe him that he would actually spend most of his time in the form of a human on in Midgard, Middle Earth, this physical realm, wandering around as a beggar, Vegtam the Wanderer, and he would wander around and learn things in this world, and he'd go explore. He was an explorer, an adventurer, and so the Norsemen could really look at Odin as an example of what they wanted to be, and a lot of these the Scandinavian tribes were nomadic, and the ones that weren't nomadic were building ships in order to cross the ocean to conquer new places, and so that wandering spirit was definitely encapsulated in the mythology of Odin for sure.
So what is? I had a vision where I went through the astral, and then I went through higher levels, and I came face to face with this giant who communicated with me that it was Odin. I don't know if that was for real or something else, or what do you think that experience was?
I mean, that could have that well could have been Odin. I mean, here's okay. So about 4 years ago, I performed a ritual where I did a sacrifice to Beelzebub, and this is a lot of people would just automatically think that Beelzebub is Beelzebub, and that's the devil, but this is an entity from an entirely different Semitic culture, and I performed this ritual for him to open my eyes and grant me, I guess, such an experience of such spiritual intensity that I would never be able to question the reality of any of this again. And the next day, I was intuitively pulled towards a specific mountain range that we have here, and so I drove out towards it, and was just told intuitively when to stop the car, what direction to walk in. And these were all very strong intuitive pulls that were unmistakable. And then I find myself at the base of a giant tree, and an elf fairy-like creature appears, made out of complete light, and starts speaking to me and telling me how to walk the 9 worlds of Norse mythology and how to read the runes. And ever since then, I mean, I've been obsessed and uncovering the full power of the Norse system. But anyways, the point of that is that at any point I could have dismissed any part of that as being completely unreal, being something as my imagination. For the impulse to go up to the mountain, most people would look at that and go, well, I got things to do today, and it does not involve going to the mountain. Well, instead, I chose to listen to that and say, no, I'm being told to do that. That's what I'm going to do. And every step of the way, continuing to follow the pull. And it's not like I had booming voices telling me to go to the specific spot. It was it's a very subtle pull or knowledge towards what needs to be done. But we all have it. Every single person, no matter what your beliefs on spirituality are, can say that we have had moments where we have known what we needed to do, and that sometimes our entire lives are determined by listening to that or ignoring it.
It's odd that you had that, and we're just coming up to break. Can you stay with us for the second hour? Hope so.
Absolutely. During the
great.
break, I'll go grab myself some coffee, and then I'm good to keep going.
Oh, good. We're going to all mute mics in, I think it's about 5 minutes when the music, and I think it's just about 4 minutes break. Yeah, that's interesting, because I had the experience of when I saw the Odin giant. He was fighting with like what seemed like a serpent, and the serpent was wrapped around the earth and it was squeezing it, and Odin was fighting it. And then I felt such love for this giant. It just consumed me. I really felt connected. And it was only after that did I feel, when I was walking in nature, that connection to God, because I thought, well, God is Odin. And then I got a bit confused because friends of mine were saying, oh, that's a false God. I mean, so I didn't know it was okay to love that entity or not.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if when Christian missionaries came and knocked at our door, if we were to answer the door and say, oh, I'm sorry, you're worshiping false gods. That everybody, everybody else's gods are going to be the false ones, whereas the ones that you're working with in the moment are going to be the real ones, and that's fine. I mean, it's a very subjective experience, and I think it's up to us to determine what we make of it.
We're going to break now, so Eric, I'll see you in 4 minutes.
All right.
Thanks for staying. Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi there, it's Joanna Hart Show, broadcasting live from Kensington in London. Oh, I've just got a comment. Great show, Christine. Oh, thank you. We've got admirers. I've got E A Koetting with me, and I'm enjoying the show so far. So that's fantastic. And I've got my box. In fact, I can think of so many people I want to do these boxes for. I'm going to be like busy for weeks. Eric, are you still with me? Did you get your coffee?
Yes, I am absolutely still with you, and I've got my coffee in hand.
Excellent. So that's quite interesting that you're into the Norse system, and yeah, I had that experience. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes people tend to connect up that they have the same experience. I haven't been able to find anything good on it. So are you going to write a book on the Norse system, or have you
You know,
already?
I've really well. Here's what I found with books is I love writing. It's enjoyable to write books. It's enjoyable to read books. But as far as communicating information, it seems to fall short, and especially communicating information to a massive amount of people at once. Video is a much more effective tool for teaching and demonstrating, and so I will be making a Norse. And it'll be a full Norse magic course. What a lot of people think is that in all of Norse magic that the magic you're using is the runes. Well, that's not really true at all. That the runes is just one form, but each world has their own sorcery that is taught there. That you can go and learn directly from the entities who maybe inhabit those worlds or who are connected to those. So yeah, it's going to be an in-depth video course for sure. We do have a few authors who are putting forward different works on the runes, and so we may go ahead and release those if any of those look promising. And then I'll do a companion ebook for the runes. But as far as writing a full book, honestly, I would have to. I would have to be very, very compelled for a reason that would be beyond me now to write another full-length book that would be on the subject of the occult, just because it's such an ineffective communication tool in the way that I need it to be.
What are the different magics they use for the different worlds then?
Oh, okay, wow, yeah. So you've got in the Midgard, in the world that we're in, the physical world, that there's a magic of combination of elements of the plants and animals that live here, that you can combine these to make different spell bags or different charms that you can leave with somebody. The magic of the gods is the runes. The Aesir gods is definitely the magic of the runes. But then the magic of the giants is that of blood magic, and so you're doing bloodletting rituals or even blood sacrifice rituals in order to direct the power of the universe really to your command. You also have talismanic magic that's taught by the Svartalfheim, the dark elves of the system. They'll teach you how to use different metals and gems in order to work magic. So these are all, and those are just some examples. But each world does have its full system, and really that's the division of these worlds, is not so much as different planets or different realms, but different kind of flows or currents of energy. And so they're different, like rivers of energetic current that flow through this world that we can link up to.
What about Asgard? Does that have its special magic?
Well, yeah, Asgard is definitely the runic magic, because the runes were recovered by Odin and then used to completely empower the fortifications of Asgard, for sure. And so Asgard would definitely be the runes. What's interesting about the runes and with the Asgard themselves is they are specifically gods of men. That these are gods of the civilization and the people who make up these civilizations. And that's important, because there are other gods such as the giants themselves could be seen as even beyond gods, that are over the actual forces of chaos and acausality. Whereas you've got the Vanir gods, that are the gods of nature, and if man happens to be a natural animal, that natural force can be utilized as a magic as well.
What did you call them? Vanir gods? How do you spell that?
Yeah, it's Vanir. And see, that's a completely different side of the mythology. I mean, when you get into I mean, Norse mythology is so rich, and because it was told for so long within small communities, and then passed on that way, and then eventually compiled together into these sagas, it is. I mean, it's embedded with a life and a story that is really amazing. But these all of these different gods, they have powers, but they also have weaknesses. And it's Loki who comes forward and exposes the weaknesses of all the gods, and that's actually what turns things towards that battle between, really, like you saw Odin battling a giant serpent. I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this is a vision of Ragnarok, the final battle in the twilight of the gods. That Odin, Thor is destroyed by Jormungand, the great black serpent, who descends to destroy all things, and destroys Thor. Thor stands in his way and is killed, and then Odin has to take him on. And so what you saw was not just the appearance of an entity, but that entity, through its manifestation to you, was telling you who it was. So absolutely, you can look at all of these things. Once again, if you dismiss any of this as being your imagination, that's fine, but you'll be missing out on the experience of having the spiritual world actually speaking to you in a very clear, symbolic way.
What was it? I think it made me feel a love feeling. It was such a strong love feeling for that giant, or the god, that he told me, he communicated telepathically that it was Odin. It was such a strong feeling, and I was really tiny, and I started trying to fight the serpent that was wrapped around the world, but I realized I was really small. There was no point in and Odin was putting in masses of effort, and it didn't ever go away. The vision didn't go, or the feeling of love didn't go away. And incidentally, what was interesting, when you talked about Azazel and you described him, I tried to, from your description, to kind of visit with him myself, and I kind of tried to journey there. And I think I kind of got, I don't know whether it's him, I don't want to sort of step on your toes there, but when I did come face to face with a sort of similar, I tried to piggyback your energy, find him. I fell on my knees and I begged, please tell me where my father is. And I was begging to see Odin. I was begging this entity to show me where Odin was, which was quite interesting.
Oh yeah. No, what is interesting, and really, it points towards a reality that I think a lot of occultists are denying, or at least not paying attention to. But that's the fact that these ancient gods are not just sitting waiting for us to call them; they're also appearing to us. They're reaching into this world in order to make contact. And I'll tell you what, this is the moment that has been prophesied in every religion, every scripture, every spiritual path, is that the old gods would return. And the old gods have returned, and they're calling us forth to recognize them and to bring them back to this world. And this is the work that I'm doing, and I think a lot of people are doing in a lot of different ways, is to resurrect the worship or the adoration of the ancient values and ancient gods who symbolize those values.
I felt very guilty, but I have a lot of Christian friends, and they were like, "Oh, that's not the real God. That's not Yahweh, and that's not the Father of Jesus." And having grown up a Catholic, I felt as if I should push it down, and I did push it down. And then a friend of mine was talking to me recently, and she said, "Look, I believe that is the creator that you saw, and if it, is Odin, that's your creator, and you can love him as much as you want." And I did go out that afternoon, and I just stood in the wind, and I just prayed to Odin, and I just felt so much strength come into me, but I've been squashing that down because of friends that are like, "Oh, that's wrong, and it's not the real God, it's not the creator, it's not the one in the Bible."
Sure. Well, what they're probably missing out on is the fact that the Bible and the God that they worship is an amalgam of various other gods. That
Oh, is it?
Absolutely. I mean, the entire story of okay, so the guy who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible was Moses. He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Now, Moses has been attributed to being Akhenaton, the pharaoh who promoted monotheism in Egypt and was cast out. The story is very similar, but either way, even if we believe the story that's told in the Bible and we only go by that story, Moses was sent down the river at birth and was raised by the Egyptians to become basically in the throne room of the pharaoh. Now, in order for him to have that position, he would have to be basically a sorcerer in the Egyptian priestcraft. And then this sorcerer in the Egyptian priestcraft rebels against the system and is thrown out. And where does he go? He doesn't go to the to the Hebrews. He goes to the Moabites and the Canaanites and becomes one of the most feared group of sorcerers in the entire Old Testament. And he joins forces with them, and not only joins forces with them, he marries the daughter of the king of this cult, meaning that he is highly initiated into the rites of black magic. Then he goes to this mountain, Sinai, which is a mountain dedicated to the god Sign, hence the name. Sign was the god of illusion, the god of the moon. That he goes there and sees an illusion of fire burning that Jehovah speaks to him. Now, why would Jehovah speak to him on a sacred ground that's already attributed to Sign, the god of the moon? It's interesting in its own. And then this is the guy who rises up and leads the Hebrews to victory. He never once knew Jehovah. He being the guy who wrote the entire scripture was in contact with these very ancient pagan gods. So even taking their mythology alone, it doesn't make sense. But then you introduce actual fact and historical documents, and you can see very clearly that Jehovah was a complete invention that was formed off of these other gods.
Really? I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's and a lot of people haven't. And so when I mean, let's look at it seriously. The three religions that have done nothing but destroy this planet and all of the people on it, if they could, are the three religions sprung out of Abraham, and that's Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And those three religions do nothing but terrorize and destroy this planet and diminish the life of everybody who doesn't believe like them, and those who do believe in the Abrahamic God are told that their glory and their virtue and their all of their works will be paid back upon their deaths. That's not a God that I think deserves any worship. If you read the scriptures of those religions, their God, the Abrahamic God Yahweh, if he was a person incarnate, would not be welcome at my dinner table because of the evils that he has done by their own scriptures. That's not a person I would want to hang out with. That's not a person I'd want to associate with, and that's not a God that I would want to worship. So when they come at it saying Odin's not a real God, well, I mean, I think that we can look at it side by side comparison and recognize that both of those ideologies and gods have faults. Are they worthy of our worship? I think this is what the devil and Loki and the nefarious creatures of these mythologies are trying to tell us. No, these gods are not worthy of your worship. You look at Satan in the Old Testament, goes to God and tempts God to reveal his most wicked side by completely torturing Job. That was not a way of Satan trying to take down Job. That was Satan exposing God's malevolence. And so you can see this throughout every scripture of every system, that the adversary actually reveals the nasty side of the gods, and none of these gods are worthy of our worship.
Is the Abrahamic God a certain God? Does he exist, or is there a creator above him, or is there just separate gods? Is there good and bad, or I don't?
Well, I mean, if you look into the astral plane, when you actually start drifting along the astral plane, you see that every god exists in its own kingdom. And so all these gods do exist. Most of them were created by the people who worship them. That somebody comes up with the idea in the form of God. I mean, I'll tell you what. I put together this grimoire. It's called Kingdoms of Flame, my very first publication, and in that I had created beings. I had created an entire story for these beings, entire kingdoms that they lived in. I created this first in my imagination, and then through astral work, and then through ritual, and then I released this book. And these are called egregores. The magician having created a being that will serve it, or servitors and egregores. And so I created these, put the book out, but then within a year, I called these entities back and looked at them a year after releasing that grimoire to the public, and the power that they had grown in was immense. That the beings actually evolve as people interact with them more, and as they use their power, they gain more power, and so entire groups of people praying to the same God for similar things is going to just empower that God and make it more and more real. I mean, even if we look at quantum physics, we look at what the Copenhagen debates that Einstein took part of determining what reality is. It came down to the fact that reality is that which is observed. So if we observe our reality in particular ways, it's going to behave in particular ways. We can see this with double slit experiments. We can see this, that science is validating more and more that our mind, or our perception of things, is literally guiding the materialization of the physical world.
Do you think we have a father somewhere, or a creator? Is there some overall being, or not? Or we're all, you think that we're all gods and we're all, that's your view, isn't it?
Well, I mean, okay, so I do have this kind of vague and childlike belief that there's a source of things, a conscious source of things, and I just call it the source, and it's emanating all of creation from it. But I also have seen through my most intense soul travel experiments and in my life here that we are all permutations of that source. We are. I guess you could say offspring, although that doesn't really sum it up. We are holographic permutations of that source, and being holographic, we are separate from it, yet we are the full picture of it. We are the microcosm of that macro, and as such, we are creators in ourselves. We're all things are just pieces of the whole omnipresent all, the source. The thing that makes us special is we're aware of it. Once we become aware of it, we begin to guide the entire process, rather than simply being sucked back up into the source with an inhalation from it into its entire body. All things being sucked up back into it and becoming nothing, that we actually can move forward through existence and make our own creations. Our creations that hopefully one day will be completely separate and new creations, that we're able to create literal realities in front of us, and we're moving towards that. It's at a very unconscious state for the normal person. I mean, look, we can all tell that if we're thinking that we're going to have a bad day, we're going to have a bad day. We all have that experience. Our thoughts are guiding what happens. If you're thinking as you wake up in the morning, God, I really hope my sister calls me, you're probably going to hear from your sister. It's just the way that we have observed it, but we're doing it so unconsciously that it's not doing us very much good. If we just turn the dial a little bit and fine tune what we're tuning into, and doing that, you can do that consciously through ritual. Magic is one part of it, through these ancient forms of sorcery. I mean, we've had the tools for thousands of years. It's only now that we have the technology of communicating how to use those tools that people can really start taking advantage of it for the first time.
Say I wanted money to come into my life, which I do. What would you say if I came to you for a consultation? Would you say to me to do a ritual? And if so, what ritual?
Well, I'll tell you what. Okay, so there are a couple things with that. If you came to me for a consultation, you would have to understand, and I would let you know right away that my goal is not just to improve just to help you with a ritual so you can make money come to you once. If you come to me saying that you're having problems with money, first thing I'm going to want to do is look into why that is, because I got to tell you, we all create our own realities, and I want to know why you would have created a reality in which prosperity is not necessarily the top focus. And if we can look on that, then we can create a financial prosperity that will be enduring. But also, part of that would be to fix the temporary problem. Temporary problem being that you want more money. I mean, that's something that can be fixed through magic. And so, what I would say is that we would have to have a conversation about the vehicle of prosperity. So some people, for me, working a day job was not a vehicle of prosperity for me. That was a blockage. And so that wouldn't work well for me. For some people, it is. And so maybe looking at how to advance in the regular job world. If you're more of a creator of products and information, then we would have to look at how to better capitalize on that and then direct the ritual to that. That's the thing that is really, really amazing about this kind of ritualistic approach is you can really fine-tune your results by fine-tuning your focus and your symbols. And so but in the end of the day, it would probably come down to walking you through how to summon forth the assistance of a being who exists outside of physical reality. And so we'd be talking about an astral entity that I would tell you how to call them in order to get their help with this. And that would likely be an entity like Boone from the Goetia or Paimon. Specifically, if you want a career advancement, we would work with Paimon. And these are different entities. There are 72 in that grimoire, but that's just one grimoire. There are, I've got thousands of spirits that we could direct you towards working with to make that come about, depending on exactly what the circumstances were.
Why can't one do it oneself? Why does one have to ask someone else?
You could. Here's what's interesting is evocation is absolutely the most powerful form of magic, and so when you're able to summon forth an entity, see it in front of you, communicate with it, and then tell it to do your bidding, you're actually going much further than asking some other being to do something for you. What you have to realize is that on the astral plane or in planes above that, you start to see that all things are not embodiments, but they are forces and currents of energy. And so these entities don't exist on the astral plane in the same form that they appear to you in. They don't have arms and legs because they don't need arms and legs. They exist as a stream of power. And so when they appear in front of you, the body that they appear in is a body that you have created for them. And I've got the Mastering Evocation course that teaches step by step how you can go through to have that experience. But you literally create the body that the spirit inhabits while it's here speaking with you. So what that means is your perception of reality has been altered to the degree that in an empty room, there now stands a full-formed demon that you're communicating with. That very alteration of your perception of reality allows you to begin to open the door to completely restructuring your reality. I mean, if you can perceive your reality as embodying this incarnation of demonic power, angelic power, it doesn't matter, but that you have taken an empty space and created something that should not exist there, you can then create any kind of change you want in your reality. And I will say that when that spirit forms in front of you, it is not just you that will observe it, that animals will go running out of the room, that the temperature shifts massively. If anybody else is even remotely intuitive that's in the area, they're gonna be either scared of what you're doing or very interested in it. I mean, this is something that creates a temporal and an energetic flux in this entire world that can change it and alter it according to your will.
I've encountered discarnate beings myself, like the one who told me about Simon having the curse on me. And I'm always afraid to ask them for anything because they seem so above us in some kind of way, or certainly just the ones that I've come in contact with on the rare occasion, they seem more powerful and they don't seem as if they're bothered with our little lives.
Now
That's what.
here's an interesting what you're tapping into is a really interesting I think difference between different sorts of spirits. So almost all of the entities that appear in any grimoire that you can summon and command them come from the Middle East area. That these are Semitic entities that you can trace back to having Semitic roots, having some sort of contact with the Abrahamic religion. Now, those entities can easily be called forward and told what to do, and they comply. Now, if we look at the entire history of the Semitic peoples, is that it's been one of slavery and domination, and so their spirits would be very, very bent towards either being able to dominate and enslave you, or to being told what to do. And so they can react that way. Now, I know if I called forward any of the pantheon of gods within the Norse system, that they don't get bossed around. They're not gonna go do the work for you. In fact, I've been told that very clearly. That in working, let's say you want to work with Odin, you don't ask him to tell you something. You ask him to guide you towards the way that you can find the knowledge, and then you do your part of walking this world and looking into the things you need to look at, and the knowledge is there. You don't ask Thor to fight your battles for you. You ask Thor to give you the strength to fight your battles and win. And this is the part of it, is that you with the most ancient gods that exist outside of the Abrahamic system, they're there to be your allies in this world, not your servants. And it does go both ways. Absolutely, that as you invite them and include them more in your life, that their power and presence gets more and more. I moved into the house that I'm in now. I've got a beautiful property here, and as soon as I laid my Norse altar. I've got a Norse altar that's dedicated to Freya, Odin, and Loki. And as soon as I laid the top stone on it and dedicated it in this property, I've had two ravens that are always flying around the house, perching around. Now, I could see those ravens as just being birds that are interested in the seeds that might be on the property. But I choose to see that as a symbolic recognition of the presence of Odin. And so that you do have communications in those ways of having things align themselves in this world to show you're on the right path. And once again, you're free to ignore them, but in ignoring them, you may be ignoring a very crucial communication from the other side.
I should call you brother then, since we're sharing the same father.
Right? Yeah. Well, and really, it's when I worked with Loki, interestingly, and I did some really heavy work with Loki for about 6 months. Those ravens disappeared, and then when my work with Loki was finished, they came back, and it is just a really interesting communication that you begin to see with the world around you, and this is vital. This is very vital. Is to actually start paying attention to your world as if your environment is always speaking to you. If you do so, you're going to start finding some very interesting things, and you're going to be able to start manipulating and convincing the current of energy to go in the direction that's going to be best for you.
That's interesting. What does your altar look like?
It's actually just a stack of stones, and so I went out, and I love the desert. I was basically born and raised in the desert, and so I'll go out and just hike around, and I'll find these stones that are for whatever reason they just call to me. Sometimes they're not even that beautiful. Sometimes they're just ugly brown or gray stones. But whatever the case, when I feel it kind of call me, I'll pick it up. If I've got a pack, I'll put it in my pack. Sometimes I'll end up carrying the damn stone all the way back to my truck, and then lugging it across. But then I lay that on the altar, And so my altar is always changing depending on what I'm kind of feeling with it, or if I pick new stuff up. But it's always just a stack of stones, and then the top stone is a longer flat piece of stone that sits on top.
Oh, right. Interesting. Interesting. I want to ask you, because we're going to, well, we're sort of running out of time. We only got the last half hour, because a lot of people have been asking me about why are we seeing more and more of what people call ET? God, I can't think of the word because my son's come in and distracted me. ET activity and, greys and reptilians. What do you think they are?
Oh, well, okay. So, I mean, I've definitely looked quite a bit into this whole thing. At one point when I was a kid, I thought I was being abducted at night. Not because I would have memories, but I would come back and have strange scars that were new scars, and I could feel at one point a metal object in my skin. Now, I will say that I was reading Whitley Strieber's Communion at the time, and so it's hard
I've
to
read that too. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
carry on.
yeah. It could. I know that I can manifest whatever I want in my reality, but as I've looked more into specifically the Greys, what I've seen overwhelmingly is that they don't seem like they're coming from a metal ship from another planet, and that they're more extra or interdimensional beings.
I agree.
One of the things that leads me to that is that most cases of abduction scenarios involving the Greys really sound a lot more like spontaneous out-of-body experiences, that the people see an animal, but then they think they see behind the animal something else, or that they observe that they're on a metal ship and they can feel the metal table beneath them, but then they can still feel the warmth of the comforter on their bed. And so these are bilocation experiences that are much easier.
Yes. Just to interrupt you quickly there, I had an expert, Joe Jordan, from is it UFO MUFON, and every person that has been abducted, it's always been an astral experience. That's why sometimes they forget, which is something I had no idea. I thought people were being physically taken, but actually it's their astral bodies. So
Right.
interesting.
Well, and so as the ancient gods are working their way back into our society, which they absolutely are, and they will state clearly to not just myself but to anybody who works with them that they want to return to this world, and these as they work their way back, and we're seeing a resurgence of people who are very, very interested. I mean, we're going through basically a magical renaissance right now, where all of this information is coming to light and being expressed and performed in a variety of ways. And as we're doing that, we're attracting spiritual attention. I mean, it's very clear that the evolution of humanity is a very important thing on a scale beyond just whether or not we survive. That's one interesting thing, is I think that we are much more, as a species, we humans are much more important than we give ourselves credit for. And I think that with the key of acknowledging the potency of our directed thoughts, we're going to start being able to do some amazing things.
Yeah, interesting. Some people think that evil has stepped up on the planet, and there is, our governments are, like in Europe, for instance, we've been pretty much sold out, and there's unemployment, and our rulers are pretty much, they're not behaving in great ways. Do you think that is? Some people think that they've been taken over by certain species, and they're, wanting to come internally and get rid of humanity. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't personally see that. Here's what I see is that that the system that has controlled things for thousands of years is very, very afraid that it's dying, and it is. Here's what's interesting is that this is the first time that we actually have the ability to question our governments and to overthrow them if we want. I mean,
that ability is being it's being tampered down massively, especially here. I say especially here in the U.S., but that's because I live here. Probably equally everywhere else, that people are getting sick of their governments and starting to do something about it. And this is one reason that the clown show that we have going on here for politics right now is what it is that people have just lost faith in our government, and it's a joke. And the people are, especially the young people, revolting. But here's the thing: it's a very, very slow revolution. I think the smart people among us understand that we cannot beat them through military force. That the enemy has the military force. It is the military force, and that we have to be smarter than that. And the internet is a huge part of it. The conversation that you and I are having right now is a huge part of it. It's awakening people to what the potential is, not to live in fear of what our governments might be doing, but to know that we have power to impress our will upon the world.
Yeah, I find that they don't like it when you do stuff like this, and you do. I don't know if you've experienced that you can get a slap back if you like. If I if I do a show that's really good, I mean, like this one where I feel people are being awakened, I do sort of think, oh, okay, it's coming. Somewhere you get a slap back. Do you ever find that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've found that I have to keep my house in order because any skeletons that I might have are going to be used against me to put me out of business. Absolutely.
That's right. Yes. I have found that recently too. If you do something and it's wrong, you're going to really get it thrown at you. I mean, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No. And so,
who is it doing that then?
oh man, I don't. Yeah, it's kind of like when Nero said that if the mob had one throat, I would slit it. It's not just one person or one entity or one group, but I think it's almost an instinctual reaction to something that they don't understand. I'll tell you, like my temple that I have set up here in my home, I'm sure every bit of it looks like it's police evidence if a police officer looks at it. That there's a training that's gone on to completely criminalize the shaman. It is really interesting to look at specifically the war on drugs and how that's become basically just a way of regulating shamanism, that you're not allowed to participate in shamanic activity at all, and it's part of stifling that ancient god that's returning. But we also see that that's coming to an end. I mean, that's the thing, is that there are sinister people who have a sinister agenda, and they're trying to enslave and control us. But
they are.
Yeah, but once again, we have really, for the first time in history, the ability to do something different with it.
And do the people that sorry to interrupt, do the people that are trying to enslave and control us, do they have black magic powers? Have they been calling on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is the thing that's amazing with it is until recently, they're the only ones that had this information. They're the ones. I mean, these are we can see through history every single time that there's been an attempt to bring this kind of information out, that somebody is crucified or burned at the stake in order to keep it silent, because the I guess you could say elites. I don't like using that word because I don't see them as elite at all. But the ruling class had complete monopoly on this information, and now this is one of the big reasons that I've seen a lot of opposition to my work is that I'm revealing all of it. I'm just throwing it all out there because I think this is information that's. I know that it's information that's changed my life radically. That my life has gotten. I have complete control over what goes on around me. I have foreknowledge of events that are about to happen. I am able to live a life that I design every single aspect of it. That's amazing to me, and I think that other people could benefit by having the exact same ability. But that's also threatening, because if we're that self-sufficient, what do we need church and state for?
Oh, of course, of course. Do you think that the elites have certain demons or a certain god that they call on? Are they sort of part of some kind of?
Yeah, I think there is, and they call him Jehovah. I
Oh, I
mean,
see.
yeah, that the elites are. I mean, we've never had a non-Christian president of the United States. I don't know that that your monarchy's ever seen a non-Christian representative for a very long time.
No.
I mean, this is who's in control, and they are being overthrown. Absolutely.
Why are the gods returning? I mean, what's going to happen? I did see, I mean, that vision of the Odin fighting the serpent. I mean, what does that mean? Who is the serpent? What does it mean that they're coming back?
Yeah, no, those are all great questions, and you know, here's I've been told through divinations and through spirit communications a lot of different things about this. Lucifuge Rofakale said that that the the collision of the spirit world with the physical world was happening very soon, and that it would result in cataclysmic enlightenment for all. And I thought that was really interesting. But then, as I've spoken with Ningazita, which was the very first serpent god ever worshipped on this planet, and as I worshipped Ningazita and got in communication with that entity, I was told that that the end could occur and all the universe would be destroyed in fire, and that I would see it all resurrected in pure form in front of me, but that the neighbor across the street might not see or experience anything. And so that tells me that the ancient gods coming back and the apocalypse that brings comes down to a personal experience. And it's interesting to look at that, because we all do live in a different kind of internal dimension. We do have completely separate realities that we're engaging in, and full control over those. So what exactly it looks like is really hard to say, because that's really dependent on each of us and how we bring those through. That the ancient gods are returning now through our works and through our teachings. And once again, these are value systems that are embodied in these gods. And so the value system of the old age, which was, enormously patriarchal, worshipful society, those values are going to the wayside, and we're getting back to a more organic connection with who we are and the world around us. Absolutely. And that's why paganism is resurfacing hugely. I mean, the fact that you can see the movement towards the ancient Norse gods. You can see the movement towards the old African gods. That the most ancient of the ancient are finally being revered again, and this is definitely the resurgence that I'm talking about.
Yeah, it is, and I think people are sick of being oppressed and sick of not being able to take part in what's going on, being kept, under mind control. I don't know. Do you know about the Monarch programs and that kind of? You don't?
Oh yeah. Oh, I know fully about the Operation Monarch and the MK Ultra, the variations of all of those programs and all of that, and I mean, it's just not surprising when you're dealing with government. I mean, government is the definition of tyranny, and so as government just does what it does, it gets out of control and really just destroys everything in its wake. And so we've got I mean, I get a news article the other day sent to me of the government having given syphilis or something like that to a group of people and had them spread it amongst the public just to see what would happen. And I'm going, it's not surprising, unfortunately, but I think this is the order of things that we're now moving away from, hopefully.
And it's interesting that there's so many things happening, and we're not informed about it. I mean, they say that the Monarch programs, when people come into the 3D, that they've got, like yourself, you've got that spirit, all those spiritual gifts, like you're shamanistic clearly, and so you've got that, and so they kind of put them through these programs, or make sure that, you know, their childhood was really rough, to kind of, you know, just to keep them struggling, so they don't, you know, they don't get the chance to blossom. Well, clearly you're blossoming, which is fantastic, but I'm sure it's been a fight.
Well, you know, it's interesting that, and I don't know about the government selection process or anything like that, and frankly, I don't look too much. I used to look really heavily into the whole satanic ritual abuse phenomenon that was going on, because it directly, you know, impacted people that I knew really well. But all of that, everything that has to do with conspiracy theory, I look at, and I mean, I believe it all. And there's not a single thing that you could say that I would about what our governments might be up to that I would say, I don't know. Most of it, yeah, they're more evil than we can comprehend, I think. But looking at that and paying too much attention to that doesn't benefit my life one bit. And so I do shift the focus to what I've got complete control over, and that's my own personal life. How, you know, that if I'm focusing on my ability to live as peacefully and happily as I can, and making that happen through the people I associate myself with, and even the thoughts that I allow myself to think, then my life tends to get really, really pretty good. And then I don't even realize that this world is full of suffering, because I'm not paying attention to the people who are telling me that it is.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, your philosophy is just fantastic. You've got so much knowledge. We're coming to the end of the show, so I want to tell people where they can get your books from. I have to say, I'm still not sure about asking the spirits of the Abrahamic group for favors, because when you were talking about them, I kind of get the feeling that they're like low and dirty, and I kind of feel personally that I don't want to interact with them. I'd rather ask for guidance from the higher beings, you know?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And so, you know, I mean, the one thing that you can do, and would be part of any ritual that you would do, is start seeing yourself possessing the kind of wealth that you desire. And so, you know, you can do this, and you can ritualize it. You can summon spirits for it, or you can just start to see yourself as being wealthy and sort of feel yourself being wealthy. I mean, this is a subject of books like The Master Key and Think and Grow Rich. That this has been and it is even a Vedic philosophy, and our Vedic philosophy on how to arrange your life is to focus your thoughts towards the thing that you want to have as if you already have it, and you're going to start seeing it manifest in your life.
What is ritual? Because you said you can use ritual. Does that mean like bathing or something, or burning a candle?
Yeah, I mean, you can burn a candle if you want to attract success. I would say a green or a silver candle would be great for that, and burn it in front of you, gaze into it, and envision yourself becoming not becoming wealthy, but having the wealth that you desire.
Excellent, thank you. Where can I'm sure everybody wants to know where they can get hold of you. So can you let everyone know where to? It's hard to get speaking to you, I have to say. It took me 6 months.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's, yeah, you can access all of the work that I'm doing at becomealivinggod.com. And so that's my hub for everything, becomealivinggod.com. And you know, you can hit me up on Facebook there. My ability to personally respond to everything that comes in is a bit limited. I mean, when I do get contacts, I do try to get back with them, but it definitely is limited because of the amount of work that I've got that I'm in the middle of. But
Of course. Are you on Facebook? I haven't found you on Facebook.
yeah, I'm on Facebook. You can type in Become a Living God, or you can type in E A Koetting.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. So you can find me on Facebook, and I post everything that I'm doing there, and all the videos that come out, and anything that's new there. But I'll tell you what, if you head over to my site, becomealivinggod.com, just start browsing around there, and there is a massive amount of information. And then YouTube as well. I mean, the amount of stuff that I do for absolutely free is really incredible. It's overwhelming. So go check it all out for sure.
I like your chats with that guy a lot. They're really good. You should do more.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'll get hold of him. I think we're going to be jumping on one here soon. So yeah, no, Nate's an amazing guy. He's Nate Bales has his own thing going on called Four Thrones. Just check it out if anybody wants to. Four Thrones. It's amazing. Black magic ritual source. This guy is hardcore. So you can check that out as well. And I'm going to jump on and do some work with him for sure, and do some more interviews.
Excellent. And I can't remember the title of the first book of yours that I read. Was it World Unseen or World of Darkness or something?
Works of Darkness.
That's it. Yeah. That goes into how you got interested in magic. That's cool. Sorry, carry on. What are your other books?
Okay, so I've got 8 hardback covered published books, and that's Kingdoms of Flame, Works of Darkness, Baneful Magic, Evoking Eternity, Questing After Visions, Spider and Green Butterfly, and Ipsissimus, and then finally Book of Azazel.
What is the butterfly about?
Spider and Green Butterfly is about Haitian Vodun, and so I co-authored that with a voodoo master, Dr. DePrince, and together we authored that book that's a complete immersive system into Haitian Vodun.
Wow. And the book about Azazel, now we've got about 2 minutes left. The Azazel entity, do you speak to him regularly? Because you said, and it was interesting, he was in a cave and he knew you were there, but he didn't look at you. And when I traveled to him too, it's like he didn't really interact with me, but I begged him to show him to my father, whether I was talking about Odin. I don't know, it felt like a more advanced part of myself that was asking. But do you go to visit with him often?
No, I really don't. I did for a while. I did that. The Book of Azazel is my journey through a 90-day path working with Azazel every day, and learning what he had to teach me. And then after that, he had taught me everything, and the connection we had was solid. And so I really haven't almost like needed the ability to travel to him or to call him to me, because it's almost like he's already always there.
Do you feel that, did you want to help him? Because he seemed like he needs help, right?
I am helping him. He was, as I saw him sitting there, he was planning out his next move that would escalate things for the next 1,000 years, and I could see that, and so I've offered my help to these ancient gods in bringing them back to this world, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Oh, right. You're going to create a portal.
I am creating it now, and it's not a portal necessarily in the physical sense, but it's a portal of communication and attention. And so as I bring more and more attention to the reality of the spiritual dimension, that the portal is opening more and more until really it's returned to the full golden age.
So they say that CERN is opening a portal there. Do you know much about that?
No.
It's Switzerland, so.
Yeah, it is all part of the same the same process for sure. That the elements, the physical elements, are just aligning to what they need.
Yeah, it's interesting. Did you read about that plane that disappeared? And they're saying it's a terrorist attack. Is it a terrorist attack?
No, I haven't. I might have to check that out. That's but once again, I do bury my head in the sand quite a bit. So yeah.
There's a plane that's disappeared, which is a bit like the Philadelphia experiment, I suppose. Well, that's the way I'm seeing it. I don't know that I haven't really looked into it, but they're saying it's a terrorist attack now. There was a flash of light and it kind of disappeared. I don't know if it went down and the media have got it wrong, so I'm not going to make a fool of myself and say that it disappeared when it was blown up. But that was the first news that came out, that it had just, evaporated. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I hadn't. I actually hadn't heard that. That's interesting. It's interesting that it would be pointed towards terrorists when I think our governments across the world are known for shooting planes down all the time.
Oh, I know. They're terrible. And of course, Britain is so much in bed with America. It's ridiculous. I couldn't believe Obama coming over and telling us to stay in the EU. It was just like a joke, really. You know, it's like we're the motherland, for God's sake.
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting to watch what's going on in the whole scheme of things, because it's all a joke and it's all just meant to distract you.
Exactly, it's distraction. Well, you have been a welcome distraction, and you've been fantastic. And I knew I liked you, but now I like you even more. So thanks for coming on. You've been a fantastic guest, and I'm sure everyone will agree with that.
Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate getting the chance to talk to you, and I'm happy to come on anytime.
Yes, welcome back anytime. Thanks very much. That's E A Koetting, and thanks for listening, everyone. And thank you to Patrick Anglis for producing. Thanks, Patrick. Take care. Take care, everyone. Bye, Patrick. God bless.
You're listening to Revolution Radio.